Just imagine this. You're standing alone in a frozen landscape. There's nothing around you. Then suddenly, the ground starts shaking. Through the snow, something huge starts walking toward you. It's covered in thick hair, and it has massive tusks. This isn't a movie monster. It's a woolly mammoth, an animal that disappeared from Earth thousands of years ago. But today, scientists are trying to find out if animals like this could one day return. Sounds like something from a science fiction movie, right? But there is real science behind it. Now, scientists can't just take an old fossil and turn it back into a living animal. They study whatever ancient DNA they can find, compare it with living relatives, and use modern technology to try to bring back some of the animal's important traits. And that's where things get really interesting. First up is the dire wolf. It looked a little like today's wolves, but it was much more powerful and built differently. Thousands of years ago, it lived across North America. Then it disappeared completely. Now scientists are using living wolves to explore ways of bringing back some of its old traits. But here's the important part. These aren't simply exact copies of the original dire wolf. They're modern wolves that have been genetically changed to have some dire wolf-like characteristics. And that raises a pretty crazy question. If we can bring back some traits from an extinct animal, how far could we actually go? Next comes the animal that probably comes to mind whenever you hear the words de-extinction, the woolly mammoth. It was basically a giant hairy relative of today's elephants. It had thick fur and a huge layer of body fat that helped it survive freezing temperatures. And because some mammoths were naturally frozen, scientists have been able to learn a lot about them. That's one reason the mammoth has become one of the biggest de-extinction projects in the world. But even if scientists eventually succeed, there's another problem. Where would you actually put a mammoth? The world it once lived in doesn't exist in the same way anymore. Next is the thylacine, also known as the Tasmanian tiger. But it wasn't actually a tiger. It was a strange marsupial predator with a dog-like body and dark stripes across its back. The last known thylacine died in 1936, and after that, it was gone. But scientists are now studying its preserved DNA and living relatives to explore whether some of its lost traits could be brought back. And here's the difficult part. Making an animal look right isn't enough. It has to grow properly, survive, and eventually reproduce. Then there's the dodo. You've probably seen pictures of this strange-looking bird before. It couldn't fly and lived on the island of Mauritius. But when humans arrived, everything changed. The dodo disappeared surprisingly quickly. Now scientists are studying its DNA and living relatives to see whether a dodo-like bird could one day be created. But think about this. If the dodo came back, would modern-day Mauritius even be safe for it? Next is the moa, and this wasn't some tiny bird. Some species were so enormous that a human could look small standing next to them. They lived in New Zealand and couldn't fly. After humans arrived, these giant birds disappeared. Scientists are now studying their ancient DNA and what it might tell us about bringing back some of their traits. But again, if the moa returned, would today's world even have a place for it? Next is the bluebuck. This was a strange antelope that once lived in southern Africa. Heavy hunting caused its numbers to fall until the species disappeared completely. Today, its preserved genetic material is part of the wider conversation about whether extinct species could be recreated. But bringing back the animal is only half the problem. You also need somewhere for it to live. Now let's talk about the passenger pigeon. At one point, enormous flocks of these birds filled the skies of North America. There were billions of them. Their numbers collapsed because of intense hunting and the destruction of their habitat. Eventually, only one famous captive bird remained. Her name was Martha, and she died in 1914. Today, researchers have explored whether the species' genetic traits could someday be restored. But here's the question. If passenger pigeons came back, would today's forests be able to support those enormous flocks again? Next is the quagga. It was a relative of the zebra, but it looked very different. It had strong stripes toward the front of its body, while the back was much browner. It disappeared during the 19th century. But here's the interesting part. Some modern zebras still show traits that are similar to the old quagga pattern, so scientists and breeders have tried producing zebras with more quagga-like markings. That's not the same as bringing back the original quagga, but it shows that sometimes old traits can be brought back through living relatives. Then there's the Pyrenean ibex. One extinct subspecies was actually involved in a real cloning attempt. Scientists used preserved genetic material and a living relative, and a clone was successfully born. Sadly, it died shortly afterward because of serious lung problems, and that taught scientists something important. Having the DNA isn't enough. The embryo has to develop properly, the pregnancy has to work, the animal has to be born healthy, and then it has to survive. And now we get to the biggest question. Imagine scientists actually succeed tomorrow and create a living extinct animal. What happens next? Who takes care of it? What does it eat? Where does it live? Is its old habitat even there anymore? And if it's a predator, would it actually be safe to release it into the wild? Maybe the biggest question is whether we should spend so much time and money bringing extinct animals back, or use that same technology to protect the animals that are still alive today. Because bringing back an extinct animal would be an incredible achievement, but maybe an even bigger achievement would be stopping the next animal from becoming extinct in the first place. So now I want to know, if you could bring back just one extinct animal, which one would you choose? The mammoth, the dodo, the Tasmanian tiger, or the dire wolf?